We started the return to train process last week, which was it's the part of a slow process to getting the group back to being in the best physical condition where they can compete. We are more than aware that this process could take some time. I think we're probably one of the first clubs to return to train, and it's a transition training program, and it's very much geared around rehabilitating players back into a competitive training environment. So it's slow, but it's really positive. And as much as they are now, they're back in an environment where they've got access to the kit and to the space that they maybe wouldn't have been afforded at home. And it gives us the ability to monitor them and look after them, and not only that, it's an environment where they can see each other in small groups and promote that positive sort of mental welfare sort of aspect as well, because we operate in a competitive sporting environment, and it's important that they can see each other and be united and be in each other's company. So it's been a really positive process so far. Many industries have suffered substantially from the impact of COVID, many other sports, and it's been well publicised that rugby is one of those. I think the financials of rugby, even pre-COVID, we're in a difficult position and we're challenging, put us in a challenging space. So even now, as I said in previous sort of interviews, we've not been able to operate as a business, as a club, since March. So it obviously stands to reason that puts greater pressure on us. But we've managed our finances as best as we physically can. We've got some really invested sponsors. We've got some hugely supportive fans within our supporter base who have continued to invest into the club, which has been absolutely vital. And we've got a staff, a group of people that are again hugely committed to ensuring the club continues to try and stay as viable as possible. And we've got two shareholders who are utterly committed into ensuring that the club can be as secure as it possibly can be for the future. So look, the landscape is extremely challenging, as has been quite rightly reported, but we're doing everything we can to ensure that we come through this as efficiently and effectively and as quickly as we can. A lot of our recruitment was done, and look, I'm extremely pleased with the work that we've done in the recruitment space, both in terms of ring fencing some of the players that are already in the squad for future, but we've brought some fantastic new faces into the group, and I think it's a huge sort of testament to the work that was done within the group sort of earlier in the year that we've sort of still got those guys coming in, and I think they're going to add a huge amount of value into the squad. Look, like everything, we have to sort of continually evaluate where we are as a club, as a company, and as a squad. And if we think ultimately that there's, when you talk about recruitment, you're often talking maybe 2, 3, maybe even 4 years in advance. So nothing should be precluded in terms of how we would evaluate what that investment could look like in future. And I think by and large, we're comfortable with where we are, but if we think that there's additional people that can provide quality into the group and move that group forward positively, then that shouldn't hinder us from taking those decisions. We want to sort of conclude the season 19-20, and that's currently our fixed target, and it's been publicised that there's a provisional target for middle of August. We're going through a really slow, methodical return to train process so that we ensure that we manage everybody's welfare and safety and security as we come through that. I think if we can get this league started and completed as a priority, then we'll be fairly comfortable about the plans in order to restart next season. But again, just being clear, it's with everyone's safety and welfare, and in the context of playing, obviously the playing group and the coaching group is our priority in that respect, to ensure that whatever we do has got their sort of safety and well-being in mind. The opportunities or the options are open to debate. So I wouldn't want to sort of necessarily sort of be specific about what those details entail at this moment, because I still think there's discussions to be had and agreements to be sort of reached across all the clubs and across the league. So whatever we do, it will be with player welfare and safety in mind. But equally, when it's safe to do so, we've been paused already for nearly 4 months. We want to get our sport back on its feet, and we want to be able to engage with our fans. And as I say, we've had a huge amount of support from our fan base so far and from our supporter base, both financially and emotionally. And we want to give something back to them as quickly as we can. We'd already launched our membership campaign for next season before the lockdown took place. And we'd already had quite a bit of commitment made from a lot of our members already for next season. So I think there's a balance in order to, those guys had made clear that they wanted to be committed to the club and they wanted to be committed to their seats and ensuring that they'd reserved their position. And in all honesty, we were so overwhelmed by the amount of fans and supporters who wanted to commit themselves to next season, even taking into consideration some of the sort of uncertainty around when we'd be back playing, and certainly back playing in front of crowds. So I think it was important that we honoured the commitment that we'd made to those supporters, and by moving that date would have potentially sort of undermined that commitment that they'd made to us. But also, I can't stress enough, the financials within rugby at the moment are fragile, and whilst a lot of our revenue lines and our ability to generate cash into the business has been paused and suspended at the minute, that our membership renewal process remains an extremely vital cash line into the club. And look, if we don't end up getting fixtures out the door, or we don't end up getting fixtures out the door in a format that allows us to engage and provide value to our supporters, as we've stated, we will manage that appropriately and we will deal with that. But for the time being, until we have visibility on that, we want to try and operate as much as we can, business as usual. And we are extremely thankful and appreciative of the fans that have made that commitment. And, we've got a significant proportion of our fans that have made that commitment to us. And so I think it bears out that, the decision to sort of stick with the date line as was the right one to do. So, look, this is one of the sort of, I guess, there's many negatives of the current situation where we find ourselves in. And we've got several players that are leaving the group this summer, some of which have been with us for a huge amount of time. Chris being one of those. We were extremely pleased last week that we managed to reach an agreement with Chris that he can stay with us. He's been the club captain for many seasons. He's captained the club on many occasions. He's led the club to multiple silverware. He's such an integral part of the group, not least from his personality and his leadership skills and qualities. So we're thankful that we've got the ability to sort of work with him for several more months. And as for the rest, obviously it's disappointing that many of those guys won't get the opportunity in order to necessarily get the send-off that they deserve. But hopefully, through our media channels, we'll be able to provide them with a platform by which they can obviously show their appreciation. Many of them have got their own social channels anyway, or their own social media platforms that they can be quite so communicative with the fans. And look, for all of those guys, I think anyone who pulls on the Harlequins shirt, we're always extremely grateful for the commitment that they've shown to the club, for the effort that they've applied in order to try and take the club forward. And look, we completely appreciate it's a difficult position, and we thank them for all of their hard work and commitment, and obviously wish them all the very, very best for the future. And if we can get the opportunity to potentially invite them back in future and give them some sort of platform to take the right level of sort of applause and appreciation from the fans, and we will do that. The immediate priority is to get back on our feet. And look, we're building a set of, I suppose, forecasts and plans in order to sort of develop the club forward, based on the assumptions that we can see at the moment. And a lot of those assumptions are that it's going to take us a fairly long period of time to come out of this. And I don't think that's specifically a set of circumstances that can only be applied to rugby. I think a lot of industries, a lot of sports are going to take their time. And look, we'll continue to monitor the situation as it develops. But we sat down as a club and as a group of individuals at the start of the year and identified areas that we felt we had to prioritise in order for our future development. And even given the current environment where we find ourselves financially, I think, if anything, it's further sort of reprioritised the need for us to focus on those areas, which is around developing our fan base, increasing our fan base, developing the diversity within our fans, to ensure that we're sort of creating a product and a club that's appealing for everyone. And we want to be ensuring that when we do get back on our feet, that we've got a winning team. We've got a team that's built around a good ethos, a good culture, and that sort of delivers on all the sort of the fundamental values that sort of exist within Harlequins. So it's going to be a testing time for a lot of clubs, as I say, as they look to sort of get back on their feet. And there's a lot of things that we don't currently have the visibility on, but I think getting us back as a collective community as fast as possible has to be the priority. The easy thing to say at the moment is that it's an incredibly challenging time, but it's a challenging time for everybody. But I think that also provides some of the greatest rewards when, you know, we've had some really difficult conversations as a group in the last 3 months, but the collective spirit that comes through from a lot of those difficult conversations and the ability to come through positively and take the positives out of a really difficult situation is then what becomes inspiring. And I think some of the really nice parts of the job are seeing what you know, ultimately what's our DNA as a club and as a business, and then seeing that sort of displayed every single day and allowing people to then grow and develop, and giving them the environment to do that. Aside from that, I'm a sports fan like everybody else, and I think when you work in competitive sport, that innate desire to win and compete just is within all of our DNA. So I'm no different to Guzzy or the players or anyone else. Like, the best bit of this job is when we win and we compete hard and we can deliver some of that emotional return on the investment for the supporters, and that's the bit that drives me on, just like everybody else. So, I mean, some of that is a bit to be decided, and we still await guidance from Premiership Rugby, and just as they did with phase 1 of return to train, we're still actively working through the plans for phase 2 and ultimately phase 3, which is the competing part of that. So we went through an extremely diligent process, ensuring that we comply with all of the governance for bringing our the relevant staff members back into our Surrey training base, and also for the players, and we'll apply a very similar diligent approach to getting back to the Stoop. And whether that includes even any element of fans or a greater degree of fan support, we'll make sure that we've gone through the right process to ensure that everyone's safety is prioritised. And again, it will have to be a methodical, long approach, and we'll await to some degree what the guidance of that looks like and the limitations that will place on us. But we've got a really strong team here at Harlequins that are incredibly competent and are deeply driven to ensure that we get back as quickly as we possibly can, but in the safest possible environment. The last 6 months have been hugely challenging. No one ever would have predicted this, and you know, even at the start of the year, the situation where we find ourselves is entirely unprecedented. But what's impressed me, or what impresses me every day, is the resilience of everybody. We would be, as many people would in any walk of life, we would be well within our rights to almost sort of go into our shell and recede and almost sort of concede, but we don't. We take each day and we look for the positives in each day, and we look constantly at how we can continue to drive this club forward. So I think the attitude of all of the staff, and we've got a lot of staff who are currently furloughed because, as I say, the business is largely inoperable at the moment. But we've got we've got a proportion of our staff who are still continuing to work in order to drive the club forward. And as I say, the determination that still exists within the group and the people here is hugely humbling, and is fantastic to see. And it helps that I've been a fan of this club for 20 plus years. And that can often maybe distort when you come in a sort of in a management position, because maybe your sort of intentions are can sometimes be a little bit compromised. But ultimately, I want to see this rugby club get back on its feet as quickly as it possibly can, and that's the sentiment and the belief and the behaviour and the attitude that's shared by everyone within the group. And I firmly believe that this remains one of the biggest and the best clubs in club rugby, and we want to see it back competing consistently and performing well and putting itself in amongst the honours as quickly as it can. And what the last 6 months, I guess, has shown us is that we're developing the group successfully in order to do that. And we've definitely got the right attitude and the right behaviours within the group in order to achieve that as well. It's going to take us a long time. It's going to take us a sort of methodical process in order for our finances to sort of rebalance. And we've taken some strategic decisions around some of our costs in order to try and accelerate that and to mitigate some of our risks. Part of that's been around salary reductions, and we've had to execute that across the board. And we're not the only club, obviously, and that's been well reported, but we're one of the clubs within the league that had to execute that in order to try and secure some of our sort of financial security. So, and look, again, it's extremely pleasing that everybody recognised the need to do that and the requirement to do that. It's important to say that I don't think that's our only solution in order to try and stabilise our financial position. It's obviously a really important one because it means that we can further drive that collective spirit within the staff and within the group. And our salary base is one of our biggest costs, no doubt about it. So it's only appropriate that we create a stronger alignment within our sort of cost base to how we commercialise the business as well. But across that piece, I think that was a really fundamental decision that we took in order, as I say, to secure the future of the club, and everyone understood that, and everyone continues to understand that. And I think it's important that we, as a club, internally at least, and to a degree externally, continue to communicate transparently around everyone about what the risks are, about what the challenges are that we face. And we do that regularly, and we ensure that everyone understands that. And when they understand that, they'll be every bit inclined to ensure that they commit themselves to ensuring that we come through it. So, look, I think we'll be in this current phase one for at least another sort of 2, maybe 3 weeks. The prediction at the moment, and everything can change, and it does to some degree. Well, not everything changes, but we do have to sort of flex around situations that are regularly developing. But we would expect to hopefully be moving into phase 2 some point in early July. As I say, there's still work to be done, both regards to our team internally, but how we'll be directed and governed by the authorities. But we would, if we were aiming for a target date of a competitive return in mid-August, then we would want to be getting some degree of step up in terms of our training regime in early July, maybe late July at the latest. Another really important point around the last 6 months that's sort of come through really sort of clear is the level of support that there is within the fan base of the club. We went through this sort of, we've gone through a really difficult time, and the one thing that's remained consistent is the really humbling commitment that the supporters have shown to ensure that the club stays active and viable. And that's just not within our supporter base, that's also within our sponsor base and those that also invest really important amounts of time and finances into the club. So, and I guess if this is an opportunity to sort of state on record my and the club's and the board's appreciation to everybody that continues to support the club and wants to see the club back as quickly as it can be, then we genuinely want to take this opportunity to do that. And I think the only way that we will come through this, or the way that we'll come through it certainly quicker and more efficiently, is by remaining as one collective club. And I think, often it takes situations like this to really sort of demonstrate and amplify that point. But it's so clear to see that we've got a really strong collective unit, both in terms of players, staff, as in coaching staff, non-playing staff, and fans alike. It's been remarkable. And again, it's fantastic to be part of that. Because it's such a great group from top to bottom.